edition of Africa Speaks, this Christmas edition, that's what I meant to say, of Africa Speaks of today. And I do hope that you are going to have a wonderful Christmas as we're approaching it, and it's almost here. Once again, welcome to this edition of Africa Speaks. My name is Stephen Mulindwa, and the program is Africa Speaks. With me in the studio is Kule.
Yeah, Kula, Kofi Kula.
Kofi Kula.
Yes.
Thank you very, very much. I'm a regular panelist, by the way. As usual, is there a leadership problem in Africa? Mm-hmm. That's a question. So how should we solve it if there is a leadership problem in Africa? How should we solve it? Is there no leadership problem in Africa? Because if there's no leadership problem in Africa, then everything is okay. But if there is a leadership problem, then how are we going to solve it? Since acquiring independence over 60 years ago, many African countries have had leaders that have failed them. Some have been overthrown through military coups as people cried out for better leadership. Yes, there have been good leaders, of course, so many of them, several of them to be mentioned. Mwalimu Nyerere, Nelson Mandela, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, and so many tribal chiefs and kings from different parts of the continent that, are doing very good jobs that, some of them we don't even know, and some have never been mentioned before. But the question is, how can we improve on what these tribal leaders and chiefs have done over the years? Because before the coming in of the white men or foreigners and so on, Africa had already had the chiefs and queens and kings, and they have always been doing a great job. The question is, how do we improve on this? How do we improve on this? Do we change the system? What do we do? Is it our education system? There are so many things I think we got to have a look at and really see. How do we improve on this? Because to me, I believe, rather than repeating the question that there is a leadership problems, I think it's a question of we are not yet ready in the 21st century to face what is coming of Africa, rather than having a leadership problem.
And it's a very good question, in terms of leadership and also the skills as a leader, the skills and the qualities, and your experience as a leader. Because we are looking at knowledge, we're looking at your skills, the qualities that you bring in, and how you compromise, and also decision making.
Of course.
So it's a lot of areas.
Yeah, I know.
But looking at us as Africa,
and the people behind you.
Yes, the people behind you. If they support you or against you. We have a number of factors which kind of limit us in terms of our ability to kind of achieve that leadership qualities in Africa. And I think that the fact that this endless poverty, where we have valuable natural resources, for instance.
But poverty, if we bring in poverty now, poverty comes in because of bad leaders. Because
this is why, because the thing is that what are the bases? This is what you need to, some of the reason why we are kind of struggling as a continent, to have good quality leaders.
Okay.
Your upbringing, the way you be brought up, becomes a factor here. If they grow up in a poor environment, that affects your self-esteem, and your ability to do things. I mean, one of the issues that we are facing now is that we are not making good use of our natural resources. And the leaders coming in, they know we have all these natural resources, which we can make good use of it. But how do you kind of change this kind of mindset, make your people become resourceful in terms of the ability, the skills, the machinery needed to do that? A lot of leaders have come in, but they are more over dependence, rather than coming up with the creative ideas to change things through maybe our education system. One thing I realize is that, look at Ghana, for instance. We have independence since 1957. And we have had one airport through that. And how many universities was in the country over the years? You have one in Kumasi, then Accra, Legon, then Cape Coast. This was built by Nkrumah time.
Yeah.
You know,
Very
during the colonial masters.
Yeah, yeah.
But how did we change that? You know, all the leaders were coming and nobody was thinking that the population is growing, the skills we needed is becoming very demanding and challenging, and that we need to train people in the 21st century. But we was not looking at that. Instead, we was looking at what? Foreign aid, international aid. You know, the thinking, this is what I'm saying, dependency thinking, whereby we have not managed to use our creativity to do things.
Yeah,
you know?
but I agree with you to a certain extent, but then at the same time, I'm also looking at it from an angle whereby being creative and being admirers, what probably we lack is to admire something and you say, this thing, I like it so much, let me take it home. We can do that when it comes to our own homes, but when it comes to we as general, as an individual, where an African president will come here to Europe and he sees something which is so nice and he says, oh, I think this thing would be good for my people. Let me take it back and see how I can use it, how everybody else will benefit from it. That sort of admiring, you admire something from afar and you take it and it helps the population. That's something that we lack.
Admiring is good, but then you have to say reflecting. I think I'll use the word reflecting on something rather than admire. Okay. You can admire something just by admiring it without taking no action.
You don't take it.
But when you reflect on it, you learn from it.
Okay.
You know. Okay. So what I would say is that, you know, our leaders, to an extent, have tried. Some of them have tried.
Of course.
Because, for instance, in Ghana, you know, the government spend a lot of money on people going abroad. Yeah. Particularly training doctors to help with coming in with new technology and other things, engineers and other things. But when these people go,
they don't come back.
They don't come back. This mindset of this poverty, I tell you, where people become very greedy in their mindset. We grew up with this corruption in mind, you know, to that, you know, that our kind of way of thinking become different. That, you know, the moment the government put this person in the plane to say, you know, we feel that we could benefit from you, you know, so we're sending you abroad to go and study. They go and they decide to stay there and they don't come back. So who do you blame here? Is it the fact that the government has invested on the people and then they have failed them?
No, this comes back to the question of education, because if you have been educated from the time when you are young. I brought this up in a system that say our education system maybe we don't educate our children, for example, like now, we educate most of them, even in my own country, Uganda, in a sense that we want them to get better jobs, but we don't educate them to stand on their 2 feet if the job doesn't come. You find lawyers, engineers, and so on. They are all looking for white-collar jobs. But you find that in Europe or in other parts of the world, even if the job hasn't come your way, it doesn't mean you're going to sit down and wait until that job comes. You become creative. Go and look for something else. You find farmers here in Europe who have degrees in engineering, who have degrees in some other fields. There are even doctors who are going into farming. It depends on how well you are and how well you can adapt to something else. Now, our people, that's one of the things that haven't been told to them. So I go back to education, as I've always been saying. Maybe schools are not preparing young people to become good leaders.
It's not
to look forward to.
Our issues are not only to the young people or the young generation, but I mean,
the old as
obviously,
well. The old as well.
I quite remember more recently when I was.
What I'm trying to emphasize on is that if we give more outward education on things which are, say for example, things which are done naturally, which you can do naturally at home, like you can wash dishes, you can clean the house, you can do this. Things which can easily, you think that you can easily, even if it's not working at home or doing that, where you are good with your hands and you can quickly adapt yourself to another job. Because white-collar jobs, university degree, people who have graduated from universities in Africa find it difficult to enter into the job market.
This is what I want to come in. Why is that? Because we have inadequate, for instance, science and engineering education inadequate preparation, you know, I mean, in terms of the way we educate our people.
Yeah.
How serious are we to challenge? You know, I mean, if you look at places like India,
Yeah,
for instance,
yeah.
whereby they have school of excellence.
Okay.
You know, they train these people in engineering, they train people in IT,
Yeah.
where European countries, you know, Canada, America, you know, the West in particular,
Yeah.
go there and get this because they feel that these people, their skills, you know, will be useful. And what they're doing now, that if you look at how the government of India has prepared his people in terms of even now these days, you call in some banks and you are talking to someone in India, you know. So you think that you are talking to somebody here, but they're not here. They are in India. Most of the call centers in most BT use them, other organizations use them. So how creative are we? I mean, we go to school using English language. We use English to help us to communicate, to be better in the market, in the world market. And even the government, you know, presidents, most presidents in Africa use English to communicate, or French. Now, the issue here is this: we are very competent in terms of writing, and also we proficient in our work in terms of the way our education system is. However, how effective are we? Why is it that governments and successive governments have not managed in Africa to train the people, their people, in terms of the country where they're from, for instance, Ghana, Nigeria, to train them so that the West will get attracted to it,
or to do the job?
Because our mindset of dependence, you know, the youth are growing now, young people coming up, and they also learning a fast way. Mostly people, for instance, go to university with a targeted market in Africa. They want to go to places where they can get bribes and corruption. And with this mindset, and also the government, instead of focusing on marketing the people, preparing them for market in terms of the world, what they're doing is that they are giving jobs to their families, friends, tribes, and you know, I mean, how do you see the whole country where city is not, some part of the city is not developed, but your town is developed as a president? Then you are kind of, your leadership style become very confusing. I like this thing about Nelson Mandela when he came to power, that despite being in prison for 27 years, despite the oppression that he experienced, you know, he didn't make up his mind to drive the businesses away from South Africa. But he decided that to keep all the businesses there, he looked for reconciliation, a way forward, you know, for healing, rather than, you know, attack, which then drive them. So why did we kind of drove our colonial masters away? This is part of it as well. The skills was taken away.
No. I think each thing has probably got a time set where I mean, it's like a child. A child is born, learns to crawl, and then walks, and so on. I believe the whole thing about the colonial masters, that era, the era of colonization, had come to an end. It was coming to an end because they themselves, we say they took money from Africa. Of course they did. But the biggest thing about that era ending was that they were no longer able to sustain the various colonies that they had, because you can't take something out and you can't bring back something in. Now, the whole Britain as an empire, the whole Germany, all these other Western powers, slowly their economies had started, you know, going down. So, and they realized, because whatever happened, they used to have manpower, sending, you know, Britain, for example, so many soldiers would be in existence in all the colonial areas, and that started proving to be very difficult to maintain them while they're there, despite the fact that they were getting money, gold and diamond and all the other things there, but sustaining them, because with education, a number of African leaders had started, you know, all these underground movements, like in Kenya, for example, the Mau Mau, and in Algeria, there were so many of these underground movements, and whites had started getting worried. Even in India, they were being killed every now and then. So the whole colonial era was ending, and because it was ending, they decided to say, let's give them independence, but we remain behind, and we'll still be getting the money from them anyway. Now, The problem with that was that maybe certain countries, they gave us independence prematurely. They didn't train enough people in those countries. You find that in Tanzania...
No, hold on. Before even you go on.
Yeah.
What sort of training are you talking about? Because if you look at the number of years that this has been, you know, we have had a number of graduates pass through.
Yeah, but
and then
what I'm saying,
we even have professors.
On Independence Day itself, on a certain Independence Day itself, you find that certain countries, the country is big. Uganda was probably something like, there were not 10 million people by then, but the numbers were there, about 8 to 7 million. Okay, now the numbers have gone up. But compared to the level of people who had gone education, who had been educated, who are engineers or doctors, the schools were there, but we didn't have enough educated people, say for example, to cover enough schools.
Uganda have Idi Amin there.
No, but that was before.
No, but the thing is that rather than, because I think we tend to use this blame game, this mindset of that. I think sometimes it's good for us to take responsibility for ourselves.
Of course I do.
And we have this independence. We have had independence for so long now.
I know.
That is no more time for us to kind of think about these independence things again. Yeah. It's a time to move forward. It's a time for us to be creative.
Yeah.
So what we need to ask ourselves is that the quality and the caliber of people who actually goes into politics. For instance, if you look at Mugabe, for example, he knows he was old. Yeah. He knows he was not active. Yeah. He knows the difficulties in terms of being proactive, you know. Yeah. The work was very hard. Yeah. But because of selfishness, you know, he refuses. And power, you know. So how do we educate our people to have understanding that, you know what, power and also making a difference. Being a leader is that you want to leave something. You know, that's it. Behind to say that, you know what, when I was in power, I was able to make this difference. But the African leaders, do they think of this way? That is how we need to look at it. It's our mindset. Are they there under pressure to satisfy people who have them there so that they need to make them all get money?
Listen, then how do we get rid of how do we get rid of the mindset? Because as you are saying, it's a mindset. That's why I keep going back to the education system. Maybe the education system will improve. If we take, for example, you see how the Jews do. I saw this on a program in Israel that they take children outside to see the countryside, to look at the country, say, this is Israel, this is your land, this is this. So that when tomorrow these children, some of them will be ministers and so on, they have already acquired the skills, even though when they were maybe 10, 15 years old, about the country itself. They somehow fall in love with the country. Now, this is where I go back to say, okay, let's get our 15, 16-year-olds to love their country. How do we do that? We take them out. I was at the House of Commons about 4 weeks ago, and I saw Michael Hazeltine and several members of the House of Lords welcoming students from Harrow. These are 16, 17-year-olds. They were there. They were being shown, of course, the political powerhouse, that is the House of Commons.
We do it in Ghana.
Yeah. Then, of course, these boys were there to ask questions, because they are the leaders of tomorrow. Now, if you do it in Ghana, then the structure of Ghana, maybe that's why Ghana is where it is now.
Yes, we do it in Ghana, but what I have to say is that our challenges are not that. To me, if the government would take a leave of what the little things that we can also contribute to help make a difference in our country. I mean, exchange program is one way of supporting students to learn, you know, encouraging exchange programs, encouraging gap year, whereby people from Africa could come here and there. But then the university, the standard of education, the university and the quality of lectures have to be good. So therefore, we are talking about having a first-class facilities. To me, instead of the government, you know, spending money outside of a lot of projects, a number of projects, we need to do targeted project and see that this a kind of a task-centered project. You know, to say that when we achieve, we put a task. When we achieve that task, then we move on to the next one. You know, why don't we build a first-class university to the state of the art, just at the standard like here? whereby, because a lot of the universities, for example, medical students, why is it that our young people will go to university, they will study, they will finish, but yet still they're not up to the West standard? The moment we start doing this exchange program, you know, the quality of the education will change.
Will go down,
the standard will also change. It will improve. So as a result, someone can be in Britain here, in the Cambridge University, going to Ghana as a doctor, practicing there through exchange program where the Ghanaian doctor will come here for 1 year. They'll go there. And to them, it will be a good experience because the kind of a medical condition they're going to experience will be different. The same thing with engineers. So it's up to the government to take a leave from these things and say that we as a community, we as a continent, we will be able to make a difference through how we kind of educate our people. But the standard, if the standard is not the same, you know, even the lowest university with the lowest grade in this country or in America will not accept taking their students there because they feel that one, the environment where the students are going to stay is important. This lighting system going off. Get generators at the university. Make sure that the light go off is on. Build facilities which kind of meet the 21st century's requirement. Then we will be up there with them. Then our students, when they finish, for example, a lot of organizations, for example, example I was giving like in India, you know, we can match it. If India is saying that, okay, we will take one person with the pay, because what happened is that the minimum wage here now is gone up. It's going to be about £8 something. £8.90 now. Now, if it's £8.90 in Africa, you can afford to say £5. This will bring money there for them. You know, because obviously the standard of living, everything is different. Then we will be able to challenge these countries. But it's the foresight of people in government. What I don't agree is that people being in coming to school here, educate here, finish university, never use it to practice, never do anything, then taking government positions. Now, on the skills job, it's very dangerous. Who is training them? Who is giving them those training? These are the areas that, in my opinion, we are lacking to an extent.
In case you've just joined us, you are looking at a Christmas edition of Africa Speaks, and we are discussing this issue. It won't go away. Is the leadership a problem in Africa? If so, how can we solve it? That's quite interesting of what you said, and I take all those things in mind, very important as they are. But at the same time, I want to bring in something which, as I've been talking about it for quite some time, Rwanda has introduced it, and that's the bringing in of women. Bring in women. If you get women, they say you educate a nation. Because if the quality of women is very good, then you probably have your birth rate will probably come down. There won't be that, and of course the children will be well catered for. Your population will grow because they will know when kids are sick and so on. And also, if they take responsibility in certain areas, they tend to do well. They tend to manage those responsibilities with the best of their, interest in a certain way. Now, all it needs is to get few or many educated women, not necessarily that you have to fill all the posts with women, but when you mix them up, because where corruption is now at a level, not so many women, well, you can hear women are corrupt as well in Nigeria and so on, you can always hear, but women usually, corruption is when they are under a man, a president's wife or a president's, but you don't really hear so much of them in corrupt areas like ministries and so on. And the reason why I'm mentioning Rwanda is because from what I've read about so many times about members of parliament and about areas where they have been, there is that rate. The thing is, I'm looking at corruption now. It's a one way of saying, how do we bring it down? How do we bring it down? Should we get sometimes even foreign people to come in? We will come
into the the corruption. But first, when you mention about women, and also in terms of feminist perspective, that's how we need to look at it.
Of course,
in Africa, you know, whereby so women, I think things are kind of progressing, but it's very slow pace.
Yeah.
It's not at a fast pace where women are in a number of positions.
Yeah.
But this is where
government... It might not actually reach any level.
Government have to make that decision, and I think it has to be part of our constitution to say that in every workplace, you will need certain amount of women, equal opportunities, so that understanding is there, rather than looking at it and saying that, oh, we kind of going to employ this amount of women.
We have a quota of women.
That's it.
That has to come
that constitution. So therefore, it's something that African leaders could take a lead from to say that, okay, we have a constitution, not in all businesses, any organization.
This has to be the
that's
number.
it. So therefore, any businesses that you have certain percentage, so the agreement will be, do you go 50-50 or at least make it, it's like equal opportunities here in this country, whereby certain number of men have to be ethnic minorities. So then you are kind of helping and certain amount have to be women. So you kind of making policies which favor or is kind of fair, you know, for women. Now, in terms of looking at it, that women filling positions in corruptions, I think it's for the government to take that responsibility rather than placing on women. You know, the government needs to take responsibility to have effective measures in place. You know, the thing is that when we are in power, who do we have? Do they have as advisors? Because when you have good advisors within your government, you are more likely to do well. And you know, the learning is that a great leader helps a group of people to identify what they want and how to get, and then influences that group. So how are they going to achieve that? Is to have good leadership, of course, around you. And that good leadership doesn't mean yourself alone. It's your team. So the sort of people that you have around them. But in Africa, people want to be secure with their job rather than making a difference. So therefore, an uncle or a cousin or a long-distance family member or a friend will get that position where they cannot then perform. If you go to many civil servant jobs in Africa, you will meet certain tribes there, certain groups from there, certain that, and they are not able to be effective in their job. So that mindset is what we need to change. We need to change our mindset and go for the skills, employ the right people for the job. Look at this country, you know, the Bank of England, you know, they employ someone from Canada. And this person is doing a fantastic job. Of course. You know, this is the mindset we need to start having to make that difference.
The governor of the Bank of England.
That's it.
Now, I agree with that. And I agree, obviously, that we need to get rid of that. But the fact remains that in most of what we're discussing, the question of how do we do it? How do we get rid of it? Because we have passed beyond criticism. We have criticized so much. We have mentioned so much. The tribal issues are there, of course, and so many other issues are there. But the fact remains that if you're not united and working as a team, it can't work. Because if you have one man and he's been in power for the last 30, 40 years, what changes is he going to do? He will want things to be the way they are for the last 20 years.
You have to be a leader who understands the public, who understands your people's needs. You know, so therefore...
But you must also remain in power. That's one thing you realize.
Yes, so therefore, being the people's leader is different from being authoritarian and being a listening leader. So before even that party goes into power and say that this is what we want, you know, in terms of progressing their policies, are you a listening leader? Is your party a listening party? You know, how open are you to new ideas?
I think
how open are you to new ideas? Your ability to compromise.
Those things are good.
The
basic thing here is action. You might be listening for the next 10, 20 years, but the fact remains that you have done nothing after listening. Because one thing you've got to realize is presidents being who they are, one thing goes out of one ear, comes in from one ear and gets out of the other ear. Then they say certain policies, they say certain things, and they don't actually act on those things.
Listen, I'll tell you something, and I'm going to, even this one, I mean, with the program that we're doing, we feel that this should all come in, you know, in terms of this. For instance, taxation in Africa. Who pays tax and who is not paying tax? We need money to kind of provide services to the country.
Yeah.
Now, what is the government in terms of leadership? What is there? People who want power, so therefore they will refuse to kind of take bold decision.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, making unpopular decisions which benefit the people in the long run. In this country, when the council tax came on, at the time they call it poll tax. When the poll tax came on and it didn't work, then they move it to a council tax. But can African leaders make those bold decisions that affect them? For instance, places like Nigeria, Ghana, Togo, a lot of people don't pay tax. They live in the country. They get electricity, they don't pay tax. They don't pay for the electricity. Even, look, when I was in Ghana more recently, I found out, what I heard is that people can put fake meter. You know, they get meter, they don't pay for it. Now, who report these people? We need to encourage the people to say that if you know anyone with a fake thing in their house, if you report them, we will give you something. This will stop. Because you know what? This person knows. It's just like when we watch Crime Watch, whereby a reward is put. That if you are able to say whoever it is, you get a reward. People are more likely to say. Now, I want African leaders to take a leave from this. Now, what we want you to do is that make reward, give small incentives to people who kind of would inform on others who are doing wrong, either they are leaders or not. Because you can't be a minister, you can't be in the police force and you are putting fake electric meter, getting electricity for free, you know, and doing things like that. Somebody, if anybody who inform on those people, they should be given reward, and it will encourage. And this is one of the ways to stop corruption.
Of course, but
so we need creative ideas.
Yeah, I know, but the fact remains is that even if people are going to report this, even if people are going to do their level best in everywhere, when we come to the issue of taxes, how tax is collected is more important than, in fact, you can give tax and so on, but if the other person comes to pay and there is no proper adequate position for where he's going to pay his tax,
I like
the chances that he would simply say,
you know,
let me keep my money.
One thing we learn in having our education in this country is that we have learned on reflection and we have learned about research.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't just do things without researching in that area.
Yeah.
So that you know that the information you have will be accurate.
Of course. Yeah.
So therefore, set up a team. Yeah. Do kind of a fact finding. Do a research on that area of taxation. You know, you can use, you are in power. So you can use 1 year or maybe 6 months. Create a team to kind of do research in that area, how you'll be able to get these things, then before you implement that. So therefore, at least you have some research in that area and how you may be able to support the people. Initially, you have to do it with support. The market traders are not paying tax, and the people who go to them, they take the money and they go. So what can the government do that will not be that you have to pay money to people's hand, that you pay by card? So you see, this is where our kind of creativity, this is where our innovation comes in, that we need to stop collecting money. Any government official needs to stop collecting money in their hand. I remember going to the zoo, Kumasi Zoo. I was offered two choices. The first choice is that you pay less, you get a ticket to go in there. I pay less. The second choice is that you pay for the full amount. So when I said to the man that I will pay for the full amount, you think, this man, you are stupid. And he started abusing me. You see, how have the leaders there tried to let other people discreetly go to places and kind of cut these things and get these people one by one. But the people you will send, they also will go and take money. So then the auditing become useless. So how do we address that?
Listen, one of the key elements of me saying most of the time that education could be one of the key areas any leader looks at. If I put more tax collectors in schools and they learn more, if I put road engineers, if I put, so that everybody's fully qualified to handle situations of this nature. Say, because the political side of things, as far as we are concerned,
remember what Martin Luther King said, that we have to be very careful with education. Because sometimes people may have the right qualifications and the right mind for education, but they may not be the right people for the job. Because you know, they can remember things, so then they will get the high grades. But these people are not creative. The fact that they can remember and get high grades and then go on the career ladder doesn't mean they are good. What we need is people who can make a difference. So education is good, but if you have a government, a law is a law and policy is policy. So therefore, if one is caught within that, then that's it. Either you are educated or not, you have committed offense and you go to prison, irrespective of, because in Africa, the problem for the leaders is that some people, they can arrest, other people they can't. People are giving money to parties, political parties, and they think that they own the country, their children own the country, they can do what they like. And these things like this need to stop.
Of course they have to. Involving young people and involving foreigners. Some countries have come to such an extent. Recently, I was reading a story about Namibia, and Namibia has decided there were certain people. Of course, they don't want the encroach of the white people or encroaching on most of their country the way they did South Africa. But the fact remains that if they get a suitable person who can do a job, you're welcome to go there and work. White, black, or whatever, you're welcome to go there and work. And you can even be a very good inspiration to the others, you know, because of the way they are trying to structure the country. Now, can Africa take this as an example? Say, for example, say, why is so-and-so doing so well? Let me go and have a look. Because what we are talking about here is mainly due to the leaders themselves. Now, a leader will know by all means that, no, I think this thing has failed, and probably the first one on the plane out of the country. But they know that if it's being chased somewhere, they know, obviously, sometimes they give up power much easier, but by force, after having, of course, been run left and right. But what I'm trying to say here is that the whole business of learning, the whole business of being givers or donators, people who donate to other people, comes from the forms that, you know, most of us have come through. You are looking at your father, you're looking at your mother, you're looking at people behind you. Now, all those people behind you have done something. Others are in churches, others, you know, in areas whereby they are trusted people. So you learn something from them. Once you can help others, then the entire corruption, the entire things that we are looking at, people running for green pastures and so on, would be out of the window. But it's something that has to be established.
You're talking about, are you talking about role modeling, good image, you know, bringing up your children in a certain way? But the thing is, this is where
all these, you see, the reason why I'm going on and around the family structure and so on, the family structure with education, with all that, it brings into light an understanding that you and I will carry, because we have seen it at home, because we have seen it in schools, because we've seen our role models are the people who are, you know, giving us best hopes that I can also achieve what he has achieved. Because we really lack that. This business of having motivational speakers, in certain countries, it doesn't even exist.
One thing I would say to you is, even in the Western world, you have prisoners, and the prisoners are full. Now, this is in the Western world. I'm arguing. I'm arguing from the left. In the Western world,
I do understand.
You know, I mean, sometimes we kind of looking for this perfect kind of
that imagery of a perfect thing,
you know, of young people or leaders, you know. But in this country, which is the West, in America, is full. The prisons are full. They're even giving it to private companies. The same things are here. America, whereby the whole issue is that if the government have appropriate policies, laws, legislation there, which if you commit offense, you have committed offense. But we need to train our young people the way they should go. That this is what you are talking about. That when they grow up, they will not depart from it. But remember, environmental factors then makes it difficult, because everyone is an individual with their own intrinsic values. So therefore, trying to make all society behave that one way is not going to work. But the government, what we need to do is that the government need to have the skills and necessary creativity to kind of work with the people, with the demands of the people, so that people with problems, they get the support from early age. You know, at the moment, we have a number of young people who are very displaced. People who are very greedy to get rich fast, because they see that some people may be lazy, But however, they're making it because they know the government, they know the system in there, where they can get contracts, they can get anything. So you're talking about procurement. And procurement is the one difficult area in Africa, where the way it's been managed, contracts are being given to wrong people. The leaders are aware, but they don't take no steps to support it, stop it. Why? Because these people may be contributors to their party funding. They are the ones who help you to be there. And now you need to feed them. So how do we stop that concept?
How about the changes in the law? Changes in the law, because one thing we've addressed mostly, of course, are the problems. And we can't agree or disagree on the problems because they are not going to go away. They're going to be there anyway. Now, the structure is that when we look at progress, if one or two individuals privately have achieved certain things, then the chances are we'll follow those individuals because of their achievements. Now, if those ones have failed, and they are the people we have, and they are the people in government, then it is a problem. It's a massive, massive problem.
This is what the question is. This is what the question is, right? We need school of excellence, which educate people, and also going through a kind of, what is the word, vigorous kind of system.
Vigorously.
You know, checking people in terms of their background. And also anyone going into government, to me, all the African countries have to do it here. If you want information about your MP, the access they have, everything before they came to power, you can access it. So they need to make this transparent for the people.
Of course,
that anyone who is willing to go for a higher position needs to be open in terms of what you bring in. So therefore, when I was applying for this post, this is what I have. When they are leaving, the people can check and said, you know what, this should be made available to the public. But these are all being hid. And also, one thing we need to force, African Constitution need to force with all the world, that through the World Bank, is that anyone who is in government, who is depositing large sums of money, should be scrutinized and be made public. And anyone who is also depositing a lot of money from Africa, coming from Africa to the West, any money more than certain amount should be made public. So that people can access those information from any bank. So therefore, freedom of information, this would stop all these crooks, money laundering, and all these things going on from Africa to here.
They will run out of business. I agree. I couldn't agree with you more on that issue. But one of the things that I think we probably have a deadlock here is the fact that when people are given leadership, they've campaigned for that leadership. They have said certain things they are going to do, and they haven't done them. So that weakens them. In a way, because the policies are not being done properly. But there is always a but when you come to these issues. But the key thing now is, however much you're going to have those people in certain positions and saying, I'll get rid of you in case of anything, I'll do this, that will encourage them to even steal more because they're still in positions. Now, what I can look at is a question, as we said, bad leadership. But one thing which I picked out from what you are saying, if we look at the background of an individual, where has that individual been? Who has he been dealing with? What sort of recommendation is that individual giving us?
The access.
To society and so on. Who is this individual? What's he doing? What is he doing? Can we follow him? That kind of thing we lack. And we look at tribes. If a man is from my tribe, I say, oh yeah, I'm going with you. If a man is from the other tribe, I say, come on.
My issue is people in government who are also being given contract. It's a conflict of interest. Now there have to be a constitution in all African countries, that if just like here, that you can't, that is a big conflict of interest. There is a number of people in government in Africa who they also have businesses, outside, and they are getting contract
outside.
So they are MP, but their businesses are getting procurement contract. And these things need to stop. This is how we will move forward as a country. And also, you know, anyone involved in this should then immediately be taken off from their position.
Okay, those things are easier said than done. It's easier now. We were debating it. We are talking about it. We're there. But
this is what will get us into good quality leadership that we as a continent need. You need people with skills, people who are very bold to be able to make decisions. You know, difficult decisions.
In that particular case, you are looking at something which is almost impossible, because if you are a leader today or tomorrow, one of the first things you're going to think about is who is going to be in control with you, who is going to be a son of a general or a son of who's coming into your government.
We learn a lot
so
from great people.
It becomes difficult. It becomes difficult.
We have learned a lot from great leaders around the world. And their ability to make a difference, and that's what they want. You know, I mean, if you look at Tony Blair government, they will say to you, oh, when he came, you know, education. Margaret Thatcher also have one. She brought in poll tax, which then became a council tax. You know, so when leaders are not there, so now if we look in Nigeria, what can we say about the changes that came there? If you look in Ghana, you say, okay, Nkrumah built universities, you know, he brought in. But apart from that, what else can we say? Now the government is saying that, okay, we're bringing in, you know, anti-corruption, you know, trying to deal with it. And if they're going to be, if by that 4 years they have managed to do it, then it's a very big achievement. The whole thing is that your ability to make a difference, your ability to make important decisions will help. But I think our mindset needs to change. Our mindset of getting riches and leaving the poor behind needs to change. But how do we deal with things like famine? How do we deal with things like famine? In Africa, I think is one area that affects us. You know, I mean, drought, famine, and things like that, you know. Getting the best from our natural resources. You know, those are areas I think that has been is been a struggle for us over the years.
I couldn't agree with you more on that issue. It's very interesting. That has been an area. Those are areas that we actually been looking at and thinking, how can these areas improve? Because it's one thing looking at an area and knowing that you got the report in your bag, in your folder, and that's the end of it, and you don't touch it until next time when you're asked. It is, as you're saying, a question of bad leadership. But at the end of the day, what I'm looking at is also the fact that there's a question of who, if the man had 2 wives, for example, the dad or 3 wives, any of those 3 wives, I mean, it becomes difficult because there's a huge attachment to all of them.
What does that got to do with the leadership issue?
Leadership issues, if you can't govern your home properly, and then you take it out on the street, how are you going to govern your home? That's why they say charity begins at home. If something has happened in your house, and you are doing it very well, and everything is going on very well, the chances are the children who are coming out of that home will probably look at you, and they will probably look at others in a similar way. Now, if you fail inside your home, that's why they say charity begins at home.
Well, because I mean, one of the principles.
That is why I was saying, all the way, I'm going back to where we started from, in a sense that with proper education, proper educated people, proper people who have been within the system of society. Because look at it from this way. Africa was ruled by chiefs, kings, and so on and so forth. These people have been there, and there was a root of leadership right from the beginning, which was there. By the time the white people came, that chain was cut. You know, now is probably the time for us to start saying, look, let's revisit that chain and see. There is something which is going on there. There was something which was good there. If we can revisit that and bring it back in terms of our clans and tribals and kind of things, then
I think it will cause more confusion.
No. I don't
in the 21st century, the challenges are different, and I think one of the areas that we can learn from is the nepotism, where issues about family values, ethnicity, religion, tribalism, all factors that instigate what? Favoritism. So sentimental thinking and sympathy you know, bias which affect what decision-making process.
Yeah.
So the person knows that all these things could affect. For example, church, they know that a leader who could be influencing people in a certain way, a church leader could be influencing people in a certain way, which is negativity, you know. But however, they don't get arrested. They know what they're doing. Because the pastor also maybe the leader also have some links secretly or giving money to them, you know, favoring your tribes. You know, to me, being able to manage, your ability to manage your family, like you said, is good. And how do we train them is good. But all these things are things that kind of affect our. So
I know. The entire thing is everything is mixed. It's like a ball, and everything is mixed in that soft ball. So that ball. So it's difficult. You need to move each one of them out individually. Then you try and fix it. Because if you leave them there and you say, I'm going to move one at a time, it won't happen. It won't work. And because it's, as you're saying, it's a mindset. But at
some
the end
African
of the day,
leaders,
how
what
can
they
we
do,
reverse that?
Yes, some African leaders, what they do is that, Steve, what they do is that they know, they target the people's needs according to votes. They want to be in power. So they target the needs, needs and services according to vote. So if they know that if we target this group of people and that group of people in terms of tribes, this will win me votes, and then ignore the others. And in that way, you are not kind of meeting the people's needs. Services, and where in this country, in the West, it's not done that way. So I think the way of our mindset is, the way our upbringing has led to all these things. To understand that we need to change our mindset. We need to be able to make bold decisions and go behind our values,
I know,
which is kind of crippling us and not making us move forward.
It is very easier said than done. That's what they say. You could, to change a value, if somebody who has known a habit for years, and it becomes difficult
Steve,
for him.
I understand. What is difficult about knowing that if, for instance, in the West, someone who does the road and get the road contract here, you have an agreement to maintain this road for 10 years. If there is a pothole, the local authority will make sure you do it.
You do it and you pay for it.
Or you pay for it. But you don't get all your money in the pot. The money is being paid, maybe 60% paid, 40% there. Already, it's spread across the 10 years. So you get payment every year through it. So therefore, if that road is not maintained, they have money in the pot, they can use it and bill it against you. In that way, but in Africa, the person have got all the money. They don't do the road and they run away. You can't get them. Those people giving those contracts, those government ministers who oversee the procurement department doing that, needs to be arrested.
Oh, gosh.
Because they are being negligent in terms of their approach. You see the way we are. So therefore, you need the right. The whole thing is that you need the right people to make decisions. You need the right people with good policy.
The question is, how do you get the right people? That's it. If there was a way that answer can be answered, because even a person who sounds is the right person, when he gets in a chair, he becomes somebody else. You know?
No, but the laws will go against you. Listen, here, if you are police and you take bribe, I quite remember there was allegation in Stoke Newington police station some time ago, and they dealt with it easily, fast. The thing is that the way things are structured makes it different. I remember I was in Ghana, I think about 7 years ago. On night time, then there was a policeman on the road stopping people. No one have commanded him or instructed him to go and stand there. No one have kind of instructed him to go and stand there. But he started there taking people's money. Until my cousin was saying that, we're going to scare this man. So he called. Pretend like he's calling. He said, no. He parked his things and drive off. He just go and decided to just stop people and collect money. So people like that, what do you do with them? You need to suspend them and maybe give them a sack. Then others will learn from it. So they have to also be kind of policies in place dealing with things like this. You need people to work for you.
But as I said, that is needed, but it's easier said than done. It's needed, and religion is there. The pastors are there. They give very different opinion all the time when I'm listening to them. So I agree with you, we need that. But the policy is something which has been in existence for the last 40, 50 years. The chances of you just walking in and cure that cancer and get, and say we need this one, and said, okay, somebody will volunteer and say, all right, I'll go and do it.
Can I say something to you? Can I say something to you? If it's a business they are running, right?
Yeah.
Now you are the business owner.
Yeah.
Now they're taking your position there and they're messing about. What do? You will sack them, irrespective of that position.
Yeah.
So why are we not running the country like a business? Yeah. It's a business that you are running.
Yeah.
And this is the mindset we need to change.
Yeah.
So therefore, we have to run it like we are running business.
Yeah.
So you need the necessary skills in all areas to be able to deal with it. And it's a very difficult job. So therefore, you need the good people around you.
Yeah.
And sometimes bring in from outsiders as well. Irrespective of the person can be opposition, but you think that they may be good.
Yeah.
Even it makes it easier for you to criticize if they're not doing it because they are in opposition. But you know they are good. You have brought them in. Bring people from outside to help you. Because we have retired individuals in the West who are very good to me, who will be able to bring in more skills, change the dynamics, change our education, the way our education structure is. To me, if we start, if the government, if we want to see great improvement, because we go to places in Africa and you go to schools, it's like there is no life in this 21st century. The expectation is that every school will have the storybooks, every school will have a library department. Things like that I want to hear from African leaders to say that, you know what, we are changing the concept here that every child, school is going to have a library. We will have certain amount of books. I met this lady and she's volunteering doing things in Africa and she's been around a lot of African countries. And what she does is that she worked for the local authority and she asks people to give her books and she go to places and get books and take it to Africa. And I won't name the African countries that she's been with. But when she went there, she was saying that she went to one school and the school, she cried. The team that they went, What? There was no chair for them to sit. The paint, they change color and the hose, and you can see mouse going from one place to another. This is classroom. Now you are preparing these children for the 21st century. These are the future of the country. It's being kind of upbringing this way. We are failing them before even they start. The thing is that the basis to everything is education, and I think that the government needs strategies to bring in more tasks. Money from there to kind of make changes.
I know, but you see, one other thing that we mustn't really go back on all the time is to expect that the government is going to be doing each and everything. Even the governments here, they are not doing everything. There are people, private people who have schools and so on. But what I can suggest here, I can understand that about the schools and so on. But because this thing was never installed in us as we are growing up, it's the same thing I can look at all the time. It was never, if you haven't, as they say, charity begins at home. You've learned something from home. You take it with you in the street. You take it to whatever level you're going to, because you've learned it from your mother or father or your auntie or something like that. These people who are leaders never learned those things. That's, to me, what I have in mind. Because if they had learned those things, their behaviors would have been different. Secondly, the command and the people there around them. If you surround yourself with people who are, are saying yes, 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 because most African leaders, they don't want a person who questions them. If you start questioning,
but you need people who are creative around you, and you can't be a leader without taking. I mean, we all have strength, no matter what leader you are, whoever you are. You have strength and you also have weaknesses.
Of course.
And we learn from our strength. We learn from it. That the thing is about learning. And if you lack of true leadership. It could stem from our problems and the need for us not to kind of for others to complain around us. It's a quality that I think we need as a leader to help us to be able to do our work. So what I would say is that
quality is the biggest, where the biggest question is.
Our people are perishing.
How are you going to acquire that quality?
Yes, our people are perishing because of this.
Yeah.
You know, being able to research on information,
Yeah.
getting the right feedback, you know, from there. So therefore, if you are researching on information, maybe do you rely on one person or you rely on different 2 or 3 people? Look at things like this in Africa. Yeah, we have a lot of resources.
Yeah, of course.
Now,
of course, yeah.
where is our zoo? Of all the animals we are seeing, we see more animals in the British zoo, in American zoo, than in African zoo. Are you aware of that? You know how much this brings in for the country?
Yeah.
We see more animals
Yeah.
in the West than in Africa where we live.
Yeah.
And when I look at, they were doing a program about in Australia, where they go to the jungles and they do things. And I'm sitting there and in the envy of it. And he said, this is Australia. Now Africa, the image is that these animals are there. Well, go to Ghana. Do you see any animals in Nigeria? So why don't we start investing in things that will bring tourism to our country, whereby we can also gain from it and earn from it? I mean, we need to start changing our thinking. So the quality of the leadership is very important.
Yeah, it is very important. But before you reach the quality level, there has to be training. There has to be upbringing. There have to be, to me, a combination of that is the package I want.
As a start.
I want to,
as a start. And we take a lead from this.
Because you won't actually go anywhere. And they said, oh, he learned that thing when he was in his 30s or 40s. No, he might have got an experience
as
from
a start.
Somewhere. But at the end of the day, the quality and something that inspires.
I want to suggest something. And also, if you are a leader listening to this program, you know, African leader, or if you are a community leader in African organization, as a start, we need to start off with our tribes in terms of the kings and the queens in our country. Now, everyone who is from that kind of a background, where you know that you are from that.
Your father was a chief. Your
father is a chief or a tribe, head of tribes. They need to set school of excellence. And now it doesn't matter the person credentialed to be a king in line. And if they don't have that ability and the knowledge to sustain that, then they should be pushed out and bring in someone who can do it. Now they need to set that standard high as a start. So therefore, for instance, Ghana will have school of excellence for this kind of people to start off. And before we also build school of excellence for other groups, just a small scale to start off with quality teachers. And if their standard cannot meet it, please. Because what is happening is that you are having a leader who is your king. Then the person may not have that knowledge and skills to be able to deal with situations. It's a problem. Now, their ability to make decisions, these people are controlling towns and areas. And then also the government needs to give them a role within it that they play. You know, consultation role, so that we work hand in hand. You know, things have to move on in the 21st century. Of course, that is my view.
I agree with you. But something here, to me, that I always try to emphasize, the fact that when you are starting something, you look at the negative and the positive side of things. You look at what you're going to achieve, and you look at how much you're going to get as far as that is concerned. You can direct, you can do anything, you can do anything, but the most important thing is, what have you done? Now, the people you've mentioned, and schools and areas that you said, and what the people should do, are key.
It's very key. You can't have a king who cannot write.
No.
Years ago, when they are going to war, we use these people.
I'm saying the things that you're saying, and I wish with all the best of my luck, you to be president of Ghana one day. I think you will sort the problems of Ghana out. the way you are so passionate about the whole thing.
No, making a difference, being a sacrifice for the community, the people. Yes,
of course, I agree with you. But the thing is, before any of that can happen, I think reading J.J. Rollins' book, because Rollins was asked a certain question, why he had killed Achimpong and all the other leaders when he took over the government. And he said, look, we had to set an example of them because of what they were doing. Corruption was at its height and so on and so on. So he said, look, if we set example that this thing won't be allowed in we won't allow this. If we keep them alive and they're there inside there, eating government money and
I don't want to go. I don't want to go there because of my kind of human rights, views. Therefore, I will not go there. I will not touch them. But what I will say is that despite the killing and everything, corruption has not stopped in our country. So therefore, we still have that problem, and it's an African problem. But I don't want to go there.
Okay, it is an African problem. But like I said, I'm trying now to come slowly to the solutions. And a number of solutions, in fact, at one time, the Catholic Church in other parts of Africa was suggesting that bringing in people who are religious leaders, for example, Pope has a number of representatives as bishops and so on in various African countries where Catholic Church is, and say, look, the most honest people are people who are under the church, their influence, and whatever they do is important because society is looking at the church leaders, the pastors, and so on. Now, if you bring in those, they will even feel ashamed if they are going to steal anything. They will feel ashamed, some of them, not all of them.
Do you mean Catholic Church per se, or do you mean churches?
No, no.
Or church leaders per se?
The Catholic Church had suggested it. That's what I said. The Catholic Church in one of the African countries, I think either in Congo or
there is a learning.
Had made a suggestion of putting church or putting pastors, reverends and so on in positions of authority in, because then they are looking at how honest they are in terms of, but they might not be honest, but they might be honest, but then the problem is they might lack the know-how of how,
This is why I want to say that we have, over the years, depended on churches and church leaders.
Yeah.
And I have to say that sometimes I feel very embarrassed instead of being kind of being supportive of the way some behave.
Yeah.
Not all, but I'm saying some has behaved and gone more than the limit. And even this is something that I feel that the government, of African countries could take a lead from as well. That many churches don't pay no taxes, and that they are not paying the taxes, and also they are not using the money to help the community.
Some are. Some
may be using it, but the thing is that if you look at places like Ghana, Nigeria, and Togo, the places that I know, the amount of young people, children, on the street, if every church is taking 5 of them to care for them, the street will be empty. There will be no children there. And also the amount of mental health people. So what we need to find out is that when the churches make the money, what did they use it for? Now, these are some of the questions that we need to because some pastors are paying themselves double and even threatening people on TV, and nothing is done. They have planes, I think, flying out on not only pastors or not only churches. I think laws, legislations, and policies around churches, and also doing voodoo workers, fetish priests, all these ones, and I don't know this one, they call it motia, what they call it, dwarf in Ghana. They need to look for all of them and then cast them, every one of them, so that this will bring in money to help people in the street. Because when you go in the street, the amount of displaced people in the street is really sad. I mean, this is what we call a leader who is able to make difficult decisions that will make a difference for the community.
Listen, I'm going to ask if you can stand for elections in Ghana. Honestly, you need to stand.
I am just a humble servant that want to help the community.
Stand and I'll be your press secretary, and I will make sure that as such.
Bless you. Thank you.
I'll make sure that you win the elections in Ghana. That there will be a lot of success there because the passion you have.
Yes, I mean, we have ideas, and I mean, we are free for consultation. To help make a difference. I did I have to say that it will be good for us
as
a country.
Yeah.
You know, what we have learned here, we will be able to take back to make a difference in any of the African countries.
I do agree. We're coming towards the end of the program.
Thank you.
And I just want to end on a note that, you know, thank you once again for coming on the program. And the key thing here is, obviously, it's going to take a whole generation to retrain the leaders of tomorrow. For example, they need to retrain, they need to know what they're doing, they need to make sure that they have passion, like Mr. Kofi here. They have passion for the country. Otherwise, without passion, however highly trained you are, however highly you know, you are regarded, but when you are not interested in, when you lose interest in what you are doing, and of course other things start going around you, corruption and other people, I mean, it becomes hard for you to be a very good leader. But that question will always be there. Who is a better leader? Who is a good leader? And what qualities that a good leader need to have? We probably know the answers to this question. But the thing is, how is it implemented by those who are seated in those positions of power? This is something that is not going to go away. It will always be there. Thank you very much for viewing our program, and I hope to be with you next year for next year's programs, Africa Speaks of next year. Thank you very much, and may God bless you. Happy, of course, happy Christmas.